How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for joining us here in this wonderful Wednesday edition of Talk Today. We get an honor to start things out with Mr. Dwayne Ebanks at 1 p.m. Chance to talk to our friends over the Cayman's Crisis Center. We're talking about a number of things with them, including the launch of the Kids Hotline. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us again today. And certainly extend a warm welcome. A very familiar spot, Mr. Dwayne Ebanks. Having you sit next to me makes me feel young again, sir.
Well, we are all getting old, so just be prepared for it.
Well, what a friend reminds me, beast the alternative. Huh?
Yes.
How are you, sir?
Okay, doing all right.
Good, man. And thank you very much. And I always enjoy not just chatting with you privately, but publicly as well, and reflecting that, there's a lot of good things that happen here, a lot of good things that have happened that sadly we're not being reminded sufficiently. And so you bring it to our fore and get people to say, okay, I didn't realize that. Oh, I didn't remember that. Oh, did you know? Well, this is how you find out, right?
Yeah, well, I think, the Heroes Day celebration this year is under the banner of Celebrate Cayman.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much in Cayman, I think, that we need to celebrate, but still being mindful of the things that we need not to celebrate, and the things that if we celebrate too much or if we even bring online, we'll mitigate against the things that we have to celebrate. And I say that which is in kind of conjunction with the environment.
The environment. And it's interesting that you share that. I'm reflecting on a conversation I had really early this morning with some folks.
Well, we'll not get too deep into that. But
okay,
but
I mean, not.
Yes, when you look at this celebration,
mm-hmm.
and again, the environment comes in. That's one of the big celebrations that we can talk about here,
mm-hmm.
or basic environment.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not careful, many of the things that come along will mitigate what that environment means to us today.
Yeah,
and it can be done quick. It can be done quickly without even a bat of the eye.
Yeah, as I listen to you, I look at the things that should be obvious. So the physical environment. So we look at the lands around us and we say, well, where is that tree? That's gone now. Making way for some other development, or it's just cleared just in case. Or we don't have as much as that. Maybe it's cotton, maybe it's guinea trees, maybe it's logwood, whatever that thing is, right? And we look at the usage of certain things. The practice of taking birch trees for fence posts. Now, we don't perhaps need to do that because that's primitive. But how beneficial, it used to be. How beautiful is a birch tree,
Well, yeah, and it was you're recycling and replanting. I mean, it was a very efficient way of putting a fence, and here we go with fences, that's a big subject all over, but it was a very efficient way of stabilizing a fence around, for instance, your pasture, your cow pasture,
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
So, and we used, the resources that we have. But, and we talk about, thinking about what's been, one of the, where the Legislative Assembly is built. There was if I'm right, I think there was a park there.
Park there.
And there was...
Was it Queen Victoria? Was it Queen...
I think it was one of those names.
Yeah.
And there was some controversy when that spot was taken to build the Legislative Assembly. Now, of course, you have to have change, but it has to be, I think, orderly change, not change that is going to really disrupt the whole flow of everything.
Now, I don't like to sort of repeat things without it being necessarily evidential and so on, but I recall long time ago, and there was an elderly lady who was relaying to some of the, as she put it, the youngins in the midst, the youngins in the midst, and she was perhaps at that time, I wouldn't want to say middle-aged, but certainly, not a young adult, as it were, and sharing that there was discussion about this whole controversy. And some people saying, well, you can build this new building, it's important, it's needed, it's necessary, and still incorporate the park. If my recollection is correct, she was saying that there were those who thought that maybe in today's language there were security issues, so we needed to keep this space secure in a way so that only if you were elected and part of that body that you could access this. And she thought, well, you could have this park, and as part of, again, today's language, as a show of democracy. It's accessible, the park is there, you're not going into the building, but the park. And as you shared, I was reflecting on this notion that how do we balance all of these competing interests, and we see them as being almost mutually exclusive, when in fact they can, coexist.
Well, I think it has to be balanced by inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you can't have 5 people deciding, we're going to build a park here, or we're going to take out XXX.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not representative of the total community. And I think that could be where a bit is lacking. Cayman is a very diverse community, but it's Cayman, CI. And if you don't have that CI in capital letters element in there, then that is where I think you want to put it, too much diversification will creep in.
Well, let me ask then, in that perspective, when we look at that notion, is it, as some joker will say, because we chase so much the material things, if you don't have no US, you're not CI, right? They don't value the importance of it, but equally, the inclusiveness, the representative nature of it, is it that our people aren't sufficiently making themselves available to give input, to get involved, to be informed, to help to influence the agenda, partly because of our passive nature, partly because we just don't want to, I don't want to offend that one there.
I think there is available sufficient people, sufficient amount of people, a number of people within the Cayman Islands community, and I say CI, I put that in parentheses.
Yes, sir.
That would come forward and give some very important information or discussion, contribution to whatever is being discussed or planned.
Okay.
And I think if that element is not in there, then you're going to have these variances to right or left of CI, and before you know it, the span is going to be so wide, and there may be a little CI in the middle, but it will be obscured by everything else.
Sort of like that biology experiment we all did with the amoeba, and as this reporting goes out and extends it, it takes in the nuclei and it brings it and it goes. Is that the problem then? But where are these Caymanians, whether and by whatever definition that they do, we attribute, where are those people standing up, speaking out, and saying, hey, let's just take a breather here, let's evaluate it, because seemingly they're quiet, almost non-existent, but for some...
Well, I think they have been making themselves available and identified within the community, but there may not be enough air being applied to what they are trying to present. Maybe they're not getting the proper opportunity. Okay. Or maybe they're not seeking the proper opportunity, because it all works hand in hand,
Yeah.
Seek and ye shall find.
Knock on the door shall enter. Now, but with that though, is it then not just that, but maybe how we're communicating or failing to communicate? And I share that in relation to all the things that we're looking at to understand. If you want to know where you're going, you're going to understand where you from whence you cometh.
Yeah.
Right?
If we don't know where we've been, we cannot plan a very good course of where we want to go.
Well, I love country music. I think like almost all good Caymanians, and the song that talks about, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And is that a problem? We're just wayward because we have no vision, no direction, no path, no conviction.
Yeah, well, I think any road, and usually right at the start of that road is the dollar mark. And that is that's the route.
Maybe,
but I think we get back to the
yes, sir.
to the total subject here. That there's still a lot to be celebrated in Cayman, yes. And I think that's basically what this special series of CI Retro Talk Today program presentation is looking at. Specifically on next Thursday, I think it is, no? Next Thursday, 17th?
No, sir, the 25th. Yeah.
I thought it was the 17th.
Yeah, it's the 25th. Let me check my calendar. I just double-checked it.
Well, then...
Yeah. The 25th, sir. Yes, sir.
So we're moving to the 25th now. Boy,
next Thursday is the well, hold on, no. You're right. She reminds me that this is 2019. I didn't look at the calendar.
All right, because everything's been pretty well mixed up here.
No. You got it right, sir.
Because this morning I saw a piece in the paper, and some of the information that I have seen previously said that. We were, of course, the Heroes Day celebration this year has been reversed, and we're now celebrating, as we mentioned, Celebrate Cayman, and that the Maritime would be celebrated in 2000, and which would be 20. But now in the paper this morning, I see it says 221, and I think the paper said 220 would be celebrating the Constitution. So
yeah.
Anyway, we got it.
What was interesting, I was looking at some things on online, and I always believe that when you click on it, it's a new page, a new thing, that it should open up to whatever's then and there. But looking at this thing, I thought, this is a new click, a new computer, but the information is old. Right? I thought, interesting. Sure enough, man, that was at least a month out of date. The news article. And it wasn't like you go into history and pick it up. You just, click on. Now, Susan shares that we have a caller. Let's join the caller. She's changed. She said, we're going to take a break. I got to pay attention. These breaks, Mr. Loxley.
Well,
they're good, huh?
Oh, they got to be.
Got to be. Thanks to our sales for doing a great job. We'll pause. We'll come to the call after the break, and then we'll tell you more about this special series with CI Retro and Talk Today. It is for the 17th, next Thursday. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs, and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Tune in to Radio Cayman every morning at 7:20 a.m. for your daily weather update. Proudly brought to you by Miller's Plumbing and Accessories. With over 47 years of experience, they'll get the job done for you on time. Free estimate. Miller's Plumbing and Accessories. Call them at 949-4709 for a free estimate.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you so much for joining us. Couple of calls on our lines, but we also have the good company of Mr. Loxley Banks. Respectful, sir, let's go join our callers.
Let's do that.
Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Sterling.
Blessings to you, ma'am. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lockley.
Good afternoon there.
On West Bears. Listen, I got to say, what I really had called in to speak about first, or to give my information, but I can leave that for the last. Mr. Lockley, you say you see in the paper where it's going to be the Siemens, the Maritime, it's going to be until 2021.
21, I
right?
think that's what was in the paper today. Yes.
I heard that before that, I didn't have to get a newspaper because I heard it through the grapevine, the sea grapevine.
Oh, yeah. That's very important.
Yes, very, very important. And about the park now, the Royal Princess Margaret Park.
Yeah,
the Royal Princess Margaret Park is where the Assembly building is right now.
Yes, I know.
Yeah? Okay?
Even though we called it a park, it had some bulrush in it, but I think it was it was still designated as that.
And some mar rocks.
Right, yeah, big mar rocks.
Okay then, so I leave you alone now, and I continue enjoying Radio Cayman.
All right, dear. Well, thanks.
Thank you very much. And let's take the other caller. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Good afternoon, Lockie.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I happened to find an article in 1965, the Northwestern magazine. And I'll show you how those guys back then, they thought ahead. And let me give you some of the headlines and some of the different pieces that they talk about. This is about the headline on the part that we're talking about tourism and the growth of Cayman and what we should do and so on like that. The title of that is Hasten Slowly. That's the advice they gave us. They hasten slowly. Take your time and get it done. And they went on to talk about, we could limit the number of foreign nationals who come here to live in this island to a certain percentage of the total population. But you see, once we started, you get paid for these status things. Government makes $2 off of that. When people come in here, and this is what worries me today, is that we got all these numbers for tourism, everything. Everybody that's come to this island has come as a tourist, And if you do that, you're going to get numbers that's blowing you out of the water. But I got a feeling, I don't have the exact figure for anything, but I got a feeling that at least it's 30% of the people that come here, because they heard about Cayman and how good it is, how easy to get work here and all that kind of thing, and no taxes and all this kind of stuff. And these people come in looking jobs, but they come as tourists. Not good. Unless you're staying in a hotel and you're paying a
premium
night. Yeah, you pay in that hotel. You should take a second look at anybody who came there tourists. Then they goes on to talk about or water and sewer. They talked about how that should be done. They talked about the everything that the concern of the growth, the growth being sustainable, which I've spoken about many times, that this what we have now is not sustainable. Everywhere you look, and I guarantee you down the road, because we don't have enough inspectors from the planning department going out and checking what's happening there, half of them probably wouldn't know what to look for in some of this construction. And they go there and they pass these things, and the day, one of these days you can see a fire like that one they had up in London with that building, that 6-story building, with all that styrofoam and stuff that burned down. Okay? These are the things that worry me about Cayman today. We get too tied up in this thing called money. Everywhere you turn, and they think it's good when we grow. People are asking 50-story buildings. I mean, how ridiculous. How ridiculous. You know? We have lost the focus on what we should have done. If these people go back to this 1965 Northwestern and read what these men of the day, the leaders of the day said about growth and about this and about that, they take that as a guide. These people that wrote this thing up spent the time on that and studying this thing. What has happened to us today? And the good book says, it says that the love of money is the root of all evil. And we're going to pay because inflation has started to talk about inflation. That when you get too many people in this place and you know.
Yes, sir.
It really hurts me to think what my son and your daughters and your son gonna look forward to in the future, because they're not pushing young Caymanians to get jobs and stuff like that. They're not. Them people, you're born in them. Say what you like about them. They weren't perfect, but they had Cayman at heart, and they wanted the best for this island. And when they saw somebody come in and try to take advantage of this island, they tell them, you know, we welcome everybody here, but here's the deal: we don't need that yet. And they let them know. But you see, we get people coming in. You see, let me give you 2 examples, then I get off. Look at this Ironwood. Remember the Ironwood project that they went through all this stuff of what they're going to do. They were building golf courts. They would do this and do that, and all this stuff they were putting out there, right? Have you seen anything happening to Ironwood yet? It's not going to happen. I can guarantee you. You see, up in Beach Bay, when they had this big old rendering of a hotel they were going to put up there and rezone the land to tourism. The people bought the land, now they're gone. They're holding on till when the time comes they can make a bunch of money on it.
And I think there were some what's the word you want to do? There were some things that went along with all those plans that was, what is the word?
Concessions, really?
Concessions, yeah. They went along with a lot of those plans, and I guess they're just lying around waiting for an opportunity to cash in on those concessions, and then we're probably left in the dark again.
Jesus, help us. I pray every day for this island, and I tell you, gentlemen, that unless we get people in that legislative assembly who go in, first of all, I would like to see them that no politician, no minister has any control over any finances. Okay, they might request something, but we have to have people that are knowledgeable about financing and what it costs and what it doesn't cost. And
yeah, but Mr. Rupert Bugze, that's not a part of the political. That's not a part of the political sphere, because at one time it was not that way, and there was much agitation, much advocacy to make sure that the politician, who's a direct representative of the people, have that control, and as it is today. And I don't think there's any chance of you wrestling that away again.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, for instance, on major projects, they might have some control over some minor stuff, like something doing like maybe a little school in the district or something, or so helping somebody with that kind of thing. I understand that they go in and they say, we need this up there. But I'm talking with major projects and stuff like that. In the United States, they have a thing called the I forget what it's called. But anyway, it's an engineering group, the Army Corps of Engineers.
Army Corps of Engineers, they have a lot of space. They have a lot of say, but it's still, I think, even in that atmosphere, comes down to the political aspect of the whole project.
Yep. Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks for sharing with us, sir. All right. Enjoy your afternoon. Ms. Loughlin?
All right, man. Okay.
All right. Blessings.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, well, we get back to the celebrate.
Celebrate.
Yeah.
Yes,
And, like I said before, there's lots of things here that we can celebrate. So hopefully that over the next year that a lot of this stuff can be brought up into the top, boiled up to where everybody will be able to participate in and celebrate it, be publicized. I mean, what do we got? We got, I believe, about 19 radio stations here in Cayman, and three television stations. And I believe that the regulations that govern these things, at least it should include that these entities have to have a certain amount of local content. And I'm not sure if there's any local content, or very little, on any of the other ones except what is run by government, Radio Cayman. And with that kind of exposure within a community of 70,000 people, you could really bring these things up to a boil and let the populace know what we have to celebrate and what we should be celebrating, and maybe even it could even become a mitigating factors with some of the things that we see here that we think shouldn't be.
Well, what is it? That Marcus Garvey said, if a people forget its history and its culture is like a tree planted with the roots.
Yes.
Words that effect.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We have a great time, and that's why I appreciate the opportunity to use this now to say, as we celebrate Cayman, we look at all the past. We certainly embrace the present and look eagerly, positively to the future. But if our people aren't celebrating, aren't informed, accurately informed, we are potentially...
the old people say wallering.
Oh, I like the word you put. So, what, Sheriff, we need to engage it.
Yeah. Well, the program next Thursday. Thursday it is. No?
Next Thursday, the 18th?
17th.
17th. Susan, help me here. What day are we looking at?
Thursday the 17th.
Next Thursday.
Yes. We'll give just a little bird's eye view into many of the things that we should be celebrating, and I think would want to celebrate. And Celebrate Cayman is the umbrella which all these things are falling under, and the vestry, I think, is the sort of semi-focus of what's happening on Heroes Day, and we will have some narrative from some of the folks from that vestry, the vestry of 57, 58, 59, that would kind of enlighten us as to what that was all about. And we've got a short cut, and Susan, I think if we could get that cut up now, if we could get.
All right. Well, she shares with us. She wants to pause and do the break first.
Okay,
when we come
let's
back,
do the break and then come back to us, and we'll tell you a little bit more about what you're going to be hearing, and then have the cut and
Yep.
wrap it up.
All right. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
It's 2019, and you know what they say, new year, new me.
Yeah, Bobo. For me, it's new year, new car.
For real? What you thinking of buying?
The new RAV4 from Vant Motors. It's one of the safest compact SUVs out there with enough room inside, which is good for my family and convincing my wife we need this. Plus, it's fuel efficient, fun to drive, and on top of that, it's on sale too.
Yeah, and I hear it's one of the best-selling SUVs on the market.
Cause you don't gotta spend more to do more. That's why I'm gonna get mine now, while they have a new stock to select from.
Do more in your RAV4. Save thousands on the all-new 2019 RAV4. Test drive yours today and see why the RAV4 is a best-selling SUV in Cayman. Available only at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Radio Cayman Super Jam Show, the #1 drive time entertainment show on your radio, featuring Will Sinatra.
Enjoy a mix of pop, hip-hop, reggae, dancehall, Latin, soca, urban gospel, old school.
The Super Jam Show is fueled by the proud sponsorship of insurance agent Michael Webster from Cayman Insurance Center.
Don't take chances with your family's future.
Radio Cayman Super Jam Show, the #1 drive time entertainment show on your radio. Enjoy a mix of pop, hip-hop,
dancehall, urban gospel, Latin hits,
reggae, and soca. The Super Jam Show is fueled by the proud sponsorship of
Savannah Pharmacy, just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Good company of Mr. Loxley Banks as we tell you about a upcoming another installation in a series with CI Retro Talk Today.
Presentation.
Installation? Presentation? Which one?
Semantics.
Semantics? But important all the same, right?
Right, yeah, very
because
much
it's
so.
a series, and then we're going to present. So another presentation of the installation of... Nah, just kidding. Next Thursday. That we know for sure. All right, so we have a recording, as you call it, a cut.
Yeah, a short narrative with a little description of what the vestry was all about, because very few people, even know what the vestry was at. In fact, I was talking to a young gentleman this morning. I guess he's 20 years old, and I said, "You ever heard of the vestry?" Mm-hmm. Well, no, vestry. Yep. Well, anyway, this shortcut will give you just a brief description of what the vestry was all about. And there'll be, I think, a bit more detail on the program next Saturday. So, Susan, give it to us.
Governing was the job of the custos with the, or commissioner, as time progressed, together with the Assembly of Justices and Vestry. The system was extremely simple.
Yes, it was, because I think the records show that the Legislative Assembly of Justice and Vestry met once a year.
Yeah.
Like in September, for the financial year to do the estimates, which the financial year was in from October.
Yes.
So, and they did have special meetings occasionally, but this was very rare. And they would generally meet in the morning, and in the afternoon, the person who was clerk of Vestry was also clerk of courts.
Yes.
So the court had it sitting in the afternoon.
So you went from one straight to the other after lunch kind of thing.
And from her history, it was found that some of the minutes of the assembly, the greater part of it was included in the court book.
Yeah.
So it was a combined thing, yes.
And I can understand why they only met once a year, because transportation communication was a problem.
Oh, yes,
so
yes. They had to come down by a canoe or a donkey or something. There was no vehicular traffic at the time.
And, of course, a governor is mentioned in 1832. I guess we maybe should clarify that. That would have been the governor of Jamaica, I would assume.
No, that was the name given to the person who was in charge down here, the governor. He was called governor, and then like from 17-something, or they were called governor, and they had justices. And in 1832, then they changed it to custos.
Now, I know this went on for about 84 years, until 1898, as far as I read or remember. And the powers of the custos were then vested in the commissioner.
Yes, commissioner came in at that time, yes.
Mm-hmm. But the commissioner, he seemed to have worn many hats.
Oh, yes, he was the judge of the Grand Court, and he was collector of customs, tax collector, and a bit of everything. And he kept that up until, because I remember when Mr. Gerard was here.
Yes.
He sat in a few cases as judge of the Grand Court. Then in 57 we had a first stipendial magistrate.
In the old days of the vestry and justices of the peace, it was very cumbersome. Apparently there was a lot of representation.
Yeah, you had an equal number. There were about 27 justices and an equal number of elected representatives.
Yeah.
Now, I remember when I first went to work government in 1945, having to do estimates and all the papers, there was 50-odd copies of everything. Yes, and there wasn't much space, so you just had to, when you were collating them all, just keep going round and round and round in a circle, picking up all these papers. 50-odd copies of things, everything. So it was quite a come down, when it was reduced down to just about 17 members, 15 plus a few extras for the files.
All right, Mr. Loxley.
Yeah, and I wonder, going through my mind, how many people out there listening would recognize those two voices, Well, one of them is our current hero, Mrs. Sybil McLaughlin, who was a long-time clerk of the Legislative Assembly. And at one time, I think she ran for politics also, and I believe she was the speaker. Did she say? I think she served as speaker. She served as speaker of the Legislative Assembly. And the other voice was Radio Cayman's, the late former deputy director of Radio Cayman, Dorian Miller. And, that little piece there was from I guess it must have been a 5-hour narrative that we did. It had to be, I think, in the early 80s, so some almost 40 years ago, when we celebrated the 50th anniversary of parliamentary government in the Cayman Islands. And at that time, we were able to pick up a lot of the old parliamentarians who were still alive and talked about it. And Miss Sybil just sort of related some of what they said. And I believe that we may be able to have a bit of narrative from some of the old parliamentarians who talked about what Parliament was like on that day.
What's interesting, and
I don't mind to catch up. But
no, go ahead.
You heard her mention 50 copies.
Yeah,
50 copies. Now, the Legislative Assembly of Vestry at that time had 58 members.
And I was going to share that when we look back to, what we talk about, I don't say this to be disparaging or disrespectful, or not even to disinform, but it's not a parliament that we have, right? But the act and behavior and almost the ethos, as I understand it, was that they were very autonomous and acted in an independent way with the greater good at stake, right? And when we look at our history, despite the fact of so much of it being still oral, or whatever recordings, I don't believe I'm speaking of the school when I share that you have championed, or been one of those champions that we need to make sure that we preserve those, digitize those, so that we don't lose whatever recordings we have. How many of us have photo albums at home that it's no longer the same picture, or we may have a cassette tape. I think Susan said she found her 8-track collection the other day, but that's a different story. And then we go back to that assembly in Pedro, on December 10th day, and we look at the legislation that was sort of enacted then. And seemingly, as Dr. Steve reminds us, what the British government did in trying to say, well, what did we do in the 1850s? And then for the next century, we were sort of in limbo because our people wanted independence. We need to be careful that what we're doing now doesn't paint a false narrative and devalues that level of independence, as it were, autonomy.
Well, I think autonomy is probably
the
independence.
I use the word deliberately.
It has some connotations that.
Yep.
But autonomy, and there's great scope within the autonomy environment.
Yep. I mean, we all talk about the mother and or the parent and the child, but no matter how old you are, your parents will always, if they're loving, kind, considerate, involved parents, they're concerned, they're going to be involved in offering up your autonomous entity, but are you truly ever independent of them? All right?
Not really,
no.
But still, they wanted to foster that autonomous environment in you.
Exactly.
Still wanting you to, they'd be able to reach out their little finger and you grab onto it.
Pull you in, and that is the relationship. Huh? Oh, Susan got a call. I did not know, Miss. I wasn't paying attention to you. Yeah, there's a call, Mr. Loxley.
Well, let's take the call.
Let's take the call. Our apologies. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon to you, Sterling Green.
Yeah.
Loxley. I don't know if there's anyone else here.
Yeah. No, just Mr. Loxley. Yes, sir.
Yes, I thought I heard. Yes, it's very good what you're doing there, Mr. Loxley. Every week we talk about it, and it came on retro excellent. Here is just to put to bed for Mr. Boosley, my good friend. The Tempest by Shakespeare. In a part of it, he says, "For he has suffered a sea change into something rich and strange," so forth. There was off his bones or coral mail, so forth. Shakespeare knew all about that from those 500-600 years ago. But that's what has happened to Cayman. I often try to say it. What we saw, we knew, we loved, it's gone forever. That way of life, that system. Our young people coming along generations would not know how to live in that, and it will not come back, alas, alas. The Custos, the last Custos was Mr. Reginald Parsons from West Bay. And that person, in effect, acted as a de facto governor. They used to call one of the Bodens, I think it was a William Boden, in the third is Governor Boden. But we've got to remember, on October the 5th, no, it was October the 26th, 1831, a letter was written to the then British Governor of Jamaica, Lord Belmore, the Earl of Belmore, and by gentlemen from three magistrates. I think one of them was a Borden, one was a Jackson, one was John, what was his name again? Name escapes me now. Anyhow, to that governor, because it was their idea was to try to get the elections held here. And the governor's reply was to appoint 2 new magistrates and to appoint funds for a prison, a new jail, though there was a jail at St. James House near Pedro, from I think it was 1821 or 1823. But they went ahead and held the first elections on December the 10th, 1831. So that started a 2-part bicameral system there with the 10 men elected by the people every 2 years meeting in the dining room of the old house. And then at the museum, was the courthouse, they would meet the same way. And that would be called the vestrymen, the elected men. And then the appointed, the magistrates, would meet in the room above. And they always met on the same day, of course, but in the 2 separate rooms. But then, of course, as it went on, as Miss Sibyl was saying, it went to become an even number. It was 8 magistrates at first, in the first meeting, December 31st, 1831. And then it became eventually the even numbers, and a huge number, 27 of each in 1944 elections. But they still were under the auspices of the British governor in Jamaica. But the thing they did from 1831 onwards, was that I know 4 laws were passed at the first sitting that New Year's Eve day, 1831. I know one of them had to do with that every man from the age of 16 to 60 had to bear arms. If he didn't have a gun, he would be given a gun, and he would have to have a JP or someone else letter of affidavit signed by him, the JP, and saying he didn't have the money or didn't have a gun or whatever, and he was given one. I don't know when that was ended, that law, but that was it. It was mandatory. And the other one dealt with taxes on liquor, I think, and there was another one, I think, taxes or something.
Probably head tax.
But it could have, I don't think so. It could have been, though. This Dr. C. McPhee, no, I'm sure. But then that went on like that till 1890. But the thing is that every law that they debated, and they passed it and put it into effect themselves. The custos, which was a Caymanian, would sign it into effect. The Chief Justice was given the title custos, if I'm correct. And then he would sign it into effect as a de facto governor, sort of. That went on until 1898. So for 67 years, we're basically self-ruled and self-governed.
Yes, sir. Respectfully, sir, thank you for sharing us. I don't mean any disrespect. Mr. Loxley? See what we're going to get to next Thursday.
Yes, and hopefully we will involve or invite some callers to come in or call in and tell us their. But it was just if you're still listening, Mr. Horton, I think you said Reginald Parson from West Bay, but I believe that may not be correct, because I think Reginald Parson, from at least the one that I know, I don't believe was ever a Custis. But I think there was a Reginald Parson. I think he was probably from Georgetown.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
But next Thursday, 12:15, we'll have some other very interesting narrative that I think you'll be interested in hearing, and talk a bit about really what we need to celebrate and what we have to celebrate here in Cayman, and maybe some mitigating factors that can help us to sustain that celebration that we will be embarking on.
And don't forget the words of Marcus Garvey. So don't beat that tree with the roots. Let's pause and take a break. When we come back, more talk today.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
The Taste of Cayman Food and Drink Festival organizers have announced this year's live entertainment, who will take to the main stage at the 31st Annual Food Festival on Saturday, January 26th of this year. The headline act at the Cayman Islands Tourism Association's largest annual fundraiser has been announced as Simply Queen, an international Queen tribute band from Canada. Once again, Taste of Cayman will also be supporting local talent at the 2019 festival. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. Rebel Conservative MPs have joined forces with Labour to inflict a fresh blow on Theresa May's government in a Commons Brexit vote. It means the government will have to come up with revised plans within 3 days if Mrs May's EU withdrawal deal is rejected by MPs next week. It could also open the door to alternatives such as a referendum. The newly crowned winner of Miss Algeria beauty pageant has hit back at critics who have hurled racial abuse at her because of her skin color. Slurs about her dark skin color, nose and lips have been made on Facebook and Twitter. Darker-skinned Algerians face discrimination in the North African state. And Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos and his wife Mackenzie are to divorce after a 25-year marriage. The pair announced the move in a joint statement today on Twitter. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
This health flash is brought to you by Cleveland Clinic, Florida. Over 65 million people around the world have moderate or severe COPD, a family of diseases that includes emphysema and chronic bronchitis. Cleveland Clinic, Florida offers a wide range of management and treatment options for COPD, including programs focused on education, medication, smoking cessation, and pulmonary rehabilitation. A team of experts is ready to review your symptoms and test results to develop a comprehensive treatment plan. For more information, visit clevelandclinicflorida.org.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. And this is the wonderful, wonderful thing of live radio. We get rolling, and as Susan said, rocking as we get moving. And I'm really grateful to have not just the opportunity to celebrate and highlight the great things that continue to unfold over the Cayman Islands Crisis Center, but as our guests get, sort of settled. Isn't it a beautiful day to be scurrying across the car park? Happy New Year to the both of you.
And you as well.
Oh man, I only wish sometimes that we can just take a breath. It's not live. Let's just hold on. But maybe we should inhale. Man, and but it is great to see the things that we do in the community that's being responsive, and all that we have. You know what? So is the day. But good afternoon, and thank you so much for coming across, and hopefully we'll get through it and enjoy ourselves, right?
Thank you.
And you won't be unwilling to come back again and again and again.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but Miss Tammy was sent across last year. We were planning some of the programming for this year.
Yeah.
I thought, all right, this is another great opportunity. And Miss Caroline and Miss Mira, as we get through, if I could, out of respect for those up higher levels, say, hey, stop letting your guests sit in and just tell their names. Let them talk about themselves a little bit, because those listening want to know. Yeah, because you got the bios and you know what you're talking about, but let them share. And I say, well, I could introduce them and talk about them, or I could let them do it themselves. How do we do this? What would you be most comfortable with? You share a little bit about yourself as you introduce, or you want me to do it?
I'm happy to do it.
Thank you.
That's fine.
All right, please do. And as you talk about it, since you're closer to me, since you volunteered, you go right ahead.
I'm Caroline Fordyce. I'm the Estella's Place Coordinator for the Crisis Centre. I've been there for almost 4 months now, and I work with the walk-in service and the Kids Helpline as well. I've been on island for about 8 months altogether. I'm from Scotland.
I wouldn't have known.
What gave it away? And I absolutely love it. It's a beautiful island.
Scotland is, yes.
Yeah. Scotland's a lot colder.
Is it?
It's a lot colder, yeah.
I can just taste the salt in the peat right now. Oh, but thank you, Ms. Lambo. Again, welcome back.
Thank you. So my name is Meher Lamba. I am the aftercare and outreach coordinator for the Crisis Center. So I come out, do radio shows, I do presentations, schools, businesses, kind of wherever we are welcome, wherever is necessary. And I also work with women after they've left the shelter to make sure that they have that ongoing support to continue their lives free from violence.
And she's not from Scotland. Okay.
Yeah, not from Scotland. I am from Canada.
The other island.
Yeah, the other island. The other cold island.
Yeah. No, you know what? I love life, and I hope people don't, take it that we don't have problems, but it's good to laugh, and there's so much that so many of us see because of our jobs, the emergency room physician, the people who work in the front lines and the trenches, as it were. And it's not that you don't care, it's just that you have to be grounded, and I think laughter is good medicine.
Absolutely.
I mean, I laugh every time I look in the mirror and go, jeez, wow. I just, but we're going to have some fun, but we're also going to be able to hopefully get people to understand the importance of what we do and why it's important, and hopefully whether it's financial support or the physical support and volunteering, whether it's helping up with the teen lounge and the like, it's many hands that make light work with committed combined hearts. We can have a very positive, meaningful impact. Now, as we look at it, I'm excited to hear about the launch of the Children's Hotline and all the other things, but take us through. Promise, Ms. Lambert, you want to start first and help us to get an understanding of maybe where we are and maybe with some of the issues now.
Yeah, for sure. So we at the Crisis Center are looking at domestic and sexual violence in Cayman. We were established in 2003, and we are the only domestic and sexual violence shelter on the island for all 3 islands. Right. Don't want to ever forget Cayman Bracken and Little Cayman as well. And we've recently launched our Kids Helpline, but we also have many other programs. So since 2003, we've had the shelter, and a couple of years ago, we opened and began working with the teens, and we've been doing Tie Lounge as well. And then we've also expanded just before that to open up Estella's Place at Crown Plaza, which takes walk-ins because we understand that the need is not just for women. It's not only women who experience violence as well. So Estella's Place at Crown Plaza is open to women, men, and children. But we're here mostly to talk about the helpline today, so I'll let Carol Ann talk about that a little bit.
And certainly it's important, Ms. Garner. We see our children, our young people, sometimes not just confused and conflicted, but sometimes they need something right then and there. And being a child, well, what rights do you have? How do you access? What do you know? Yet life goes on, and you're affected by it sometimes very negatively. So
yeah, absolutely. And that was the reason why we launched the Child Helpline. There was research put into them when some young people and some stakeholders and professionals were interviewed and surveyed, and it was found that was a gap within the islands, and it was something that everyone felt would be beneficial and was much needed. So we launched the helpline in November. And it's really just for anything at all. So it's for anyone under the age of 18 who can call in, and it's for any subject. So it's not just about domestic violence, which is what obviously the Crisis Centre is known for. It can be any subject at all. So it can be peer pressure, it can be school problems, it can be bullying, it can be relationship problems, it can be mental health problems, it can be absolutely anything at all, or just to have someone to talk to. And sometimes if it's someone that you don't know, makes it a bit easier, to talk about problems that you've got and the way that you're feeling. Maybe, people are confused about how they feel, especially in teenage years, it becomes very confusing. So just having someone who's non-judgmental, who will just talk you through that and support you in any way that we can.
And I'll say this, and I'll ask you to guide me, because I think sometimes we take for granted as adults, having that friend, that girlfriend, that friend that you can sit with and have a coffee, just chat. Maybe you're out fishing and you're talking, but you don't realize you're talking, so the 2 guys are there. Yeah. But just have someone that listens and is sincere and is going to, 1, keep what you share in confidence, and 2, it's going to tell you what you need to hear, to help you through it. Just have that listening ear. Can you imagine that teen, the adolescent that has all these things going on and feels so frustrated and all these other things? Having this resource is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you've got someone there that you can talk to and who will listen to you, then you forget how important that is, and you forget how valuable it is. But actually, listening to someone is one of the biggest gifts that you can give them, and it's something that we don't really put enough emphasis on, and we don't really recognise enough until you don't have it, until it's not there. And it's such a small thing to be able to give to someone, but actually the effect that it has on them is huge. And I think everyone needs that, that someone, that listening ear. It's absolutely massive, and it's so crucial to everyone. We all need it at some point in our lives, and that's the whole point of the helpline, is just to be that listening ear, to be that safeguard for any children or young people.
And that's available 24 hours a day?
At the moment, it's not. That will be in the future. At the moment, it's a pilot programme, so we're very much testing the waters to see how it's recepted, the best way to do it. So at the moment, it's on a Monday, a Wednesday and a Friday between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. We done that so that it was out of school hours. We thought that young people are more likely to be able to call us at that point. So we're testing it at the moment. The plan is that at some point this year it will be 24 hours, but at the moment we're just seeing how it works out in the pilot stage.
And we do also have our 24-hour crisis line, and that hasn't gone away. So there is a 24-hour crisis line where anyone of any age, of any gender, can also call in, and that one is open 24/7.
All right, and with your permission, if you so choose, we'll give out those numbers and have it readily available to people, because
absolutely,
you never know. We all, well, you guys are young, so you're probably not familiar with that comedian Rodney Dangerfield, who would, but he would joke, I call, suicide prevention to put me on hold. This is no joke. We need to be able to chat with people, and I say that hopefully get people to, by making the joke and the laughter, that they'll understand the importance and recall that having these resources available, knowing that they're there, you may just pass it on to someone, just in conversation, and that may stick with them, and who knows, they may pass it on, or they may need it at some point. Never.
Absolutely, yeah.
So important. Yeah. But from that, with the Children's Hotline and Helpline in particular, as we call that, and they reach out, just free call? They pick it up and call?
Yes, it's free to all three islands. Again, it covers Cayman, Bracken, Little Cayman as well. It is completely free of charge, as is the crisis line. They are both completely free. And I felt that was really important as well, because not everyone, myself included, has, credit on their phones. And we don't know how long that call is going to take either. Sometimes it can take a really long time for people to actually talk about the real issue why they're phoning. So they are completely free of charge.
Yeah, and I appreciate you emphasising that, because I think sometimes just sort of maybe frustration and desperation, maybe hopefully that young person will pick up the line and just dial in and say, hey, this is what is transpiring now. Can you chat and
absolutely
have that professional on the other end and say, well, okay, take a minute, catch your breath, let's see what's what, and move them on. No guilt, no condemnation, no judgment. Just there to listen. And we've all been there where we need someone to listen. Did you see what my husband did today? I can't believe it. He went out and bought that paint, and I told him so many things, and it may be more than that. And it's just having an opportunity to do more than vent. For our listeners, though, how can we be supportive? How can we be attentive? How can we be responsible and respectful of what you're doing? How can we?
Well, we're always looking for volunteers. Always looking for volunteers. And so we use volunteers. We have a sort of constant rolling programme, if you like, of volunteering. All of our volunteers are fully trained. The training consists of things like listening skills, as we talked about, is so important. Confidentiality, again, is really important. Values and attitudes, child protection, about suicide awareness and domestic violence awareness as well. And there is also specific training that is for the helpline as well. So we're always looking for volunteers for the helpline, for the shelter, for Taya Lounge as well. So that's our teens and young adults programme that is run from Estella's Place also. That's for 14 to 21-year-olds. So we need volunteers to come along and help out there. That's an evening programme. And for things like, shopping, grocery shopping, helping take in donations at our warehouse, admin, if anybody's, an IT genius, we really need you.
Susan?
We really need you.
This is our call.
It just so, and this is, hopefully we'll get a chance again to highlight the volunteer, but I wanted to, put that out there very early, because some of us don't always appreciate that we have these skill sets that are on tap, underutilized, that we don't even realize can be so beneficial. You talked about admin and IT. Those are fundamental. Organizing, we have these resources and supplies here, but, where are they? They're in there somewhere. Just something as making that efficient and accessible. can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. We're quite a small staff team as well, so for us to be doing everything is just, it becomes a bit overwhelming, as I'm sure Meher will agree with. So just even to have someone else who could just do that one thing for us, set up a database, set up something like that, then that would be absolutely fantastic.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think we are a small team, and with organizations like the Crisis Center, we really don't run without the help and support of our volunteers. And whatever skills you have, they are more than welcome at the Crisis Center for sure.
Right.
I think people think that if they don't have experience of domestic violence or of child protection, then they're not qualified, and that's just not the case. That's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for experts to walk through the door. What we're looking for is people who care, and just want to give something back and want to contribute something to their community. And I think the fact that you're interested in our organisation in the first place kind of qualifies you. That in itself. We will provide full training.
And the thing is, I think we're all affected. All affected. If it affects our homes, our children, it affects our communities. It's going to affect us in some facet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we can do. Ms. Susan, are you reminding me that we need to pause and take a break? I need to pay a little bit more attention to her, watch her more closely. I just get engaged sometimes, and she's like, "Gotta take a break." All right. Well, when we come back, let's continue learning more about the Cayman's Crisis Center. Let's share with you and hopefully get people involved and committed. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
The facts on domestic violence are widely misunderstood. According to the Center for Disease Control, Harvard University, and many academic studies, men and women are equal victims in domestic violence. Even more understood is that in 2/3 of domestic violence incidents, women hit first. It's time to change the narrative. Remember, a healthy relationship will never require you to sacrifice your friends, your dreams, or your dignity. Stop the slap, stop the cycle, stop the violence.
The Stop the Slap campaign has been proudly sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Stop the slap. Stop the cycle. Stop the violence. Barry's Golden Jerk, the Cayman Brac sensation, ranked the #1 restaurant in Cayman Brac by TripAdvisor and home of the authentic jerk. Barry's Golden Jerk, serving large portions of the best jerk chicken and pork. Open Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday near the airport, or call 917-6713. Barry's Golden Jerk. It's simply better.
For years, we have been promised prosperity on the heels of rapid development.
However, last year, over 2,000 Caymanian families
required the services of the Needs Assessment Unit. Now, we are faced with the largest capital project in our history,
at the risk of destroying what attracts people to our shores.
The government's Destination Performance Report states that annually
1.8 million cruise visitors contributed
$154 million in revenue,
whereas 450,000 stayover visitors contribute $497 million.
$497 million.
It is time for a national development plan.
It is time for a national development plan.
And better decision making.
That takes into account our human, financial, and ecological resources.
Where we will no longer be driven like a boat without a rudder.
We don't need handouts from cruise lines.
Get your answers.
Sign the petition. Sign the petition. Support the referendum.
Support the referendum.
Support the referendum.
And let's build our future together.
Together.
Headlines.
With the latest headlines.
All
the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news. Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. Radio Cayman News.
Headlines.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us. And if I may say, all the people out there who volunteer, who are part of the different NGOs, the service clubs and the like, whether it's through your church or your school or whether just through your office, and you're making an invaluable contribution to our communities. Thank you very much. For those who find it much easier and lift the pen and write a check, well, continue to do that as well. Those resources are being utilized effectively, and I think as we support the Cayman Islands Crisis Centre, we see the impact and the import of it. So thanks very much to our guests. And Carla, to you, Ms. Mayor, as you join us, maybe the community will become cognizant. Perhaps maybe we'll become, to a point where we realize that we can and should be doing more to address the issue so that these things don't plague our societies. At least we're talking about it and not ignoring the plights of so many. So that's a start, Let's not bury our heads in sand and believe that it doesn't affect us. It does. Now, Ms. Lamba, as we look at it, numbers that people can and should know.
Yeah. So we've got our, I'll start with our 24-hour crisis line. That is available any day of the week, anytime. And that number is 943-CICC, which is 2422. Mm-hmm. We've also got our recently launched Kids Helpline, which we're here to talk about today. That is available Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. That number is 649-KIDS, which is 5437. And also, if you ever just want to reach out to the Crisis Center, you have any questions, you want to help out, we've got our email, which is info@cicc.ky, and the office phone number is 949-0366.
So there's just a regular call to the office. Maybe you want to find out more, donate nothing.
Yeah.
This is non-emergency issue, just an office call. 949-0366.
Yes.
All right. I must share that I liked when your first sort of promo of your hotline, 943 CICC. It was, I remembered it, and that's 2422. So hopefully we'll do that and make
that's
the 64.
Yeah,
it will become available, and I think I will get it. Now, from the perspective of some of your programming, the aftercare, the Thai lounge, and even the emergency shelter, and the like, how people access it, certainly share with us so that we understand. The confidentiality, I think, is maybe most of us appreciate how secure, how confidential it is, despite it being a very small community. I think you do an excellent job maintaining the safety, the confidentiality and the security of the people you serve.
Mm-hmm. I think that's imperative. The location of the shelter is confidential. People need to trust that they can come there and be safe within that environment. It is very small. We are looking at not expanding, but moving to a different location in the next few years that will hopefully be bigger. Unfortunately, it's needed to be bigger. But yes, at the moment it is an undisclosed location. That it always will be, and I think people need to feel they've come from a very dangerous, situation. They need to feel safe in the environment that they're in.
And while that's true of our emergency shelter services, all of our services are confidential services. Whether you're accessing aftercare or services through Estella's Place, you know where that's located. That's easily accessible for you or somebody who may need it, but our services and the person providing you services will maintain your confidentiality, and that's a big part of the services that we provide as well, and that's true for all of them.
Yeah,
I'll invite you as you decides best to present, and I must share that I've observed the operation from a distance, and two things: admire the professionalism, the competence, the care, the sincerity. But I'm also alarmed as a community that these things are unfolding in our society. Some of us seemingly oblivious to it, seemingly unwilling to acknowledge, that can't be here. And it's not what you see on TV that's in the big city. This is down the street. This is the co-worker. This is the family member. This is,
Absolutely.
Sorry.
I think it's really difficult. It's a difficult subject, and it's difficult for people to, people don't want to believe that that's going on in their neighbourhood, in their community. And this isn't, particular to Cayman either. This is a worldwide issue. But I think when you realise that 1 in 3 women in their lifetime will experience domestic violence, that puts things into perspective. There are, in our office alone, there are 5 women. 1 in 3 women in their lifetime will experience domestic violence. So that's just within our office environment. That makes it a bit more real. And on average, it takes a woman 7 times before she will actually leave that relationship for good, and she will have been beaten or attacked up to 35 times before that happens. So this is a very real issue. This is how people are living, unfortunately, and that's what the crisis centre is all about. We want to make this a non-violent state. Violence is not the answer, and that's the message that we're trying to put out. Whether it's women, men, children, violence is not the answer. There is always an alternative, and it's about people realising as well that they don't need to live like that. There is somewhere for them to go. There is an alternative. They do have options.
Not to speak out of school, I was part of a presentation long ago where people were talking about the issues that are faced within relationships, business relationships, physical relationships, and sometimes the issue of dependency. So in a business, one partner, one principal is perhaps more dominant, has a greater shareholding or what have you. Maybe it's the skill set that is needed. So the other one is like, well, I sort of have to defer to you. Put it kindly. In the marriage situation, maybe one is the larger breadwinner or is the breadwinner, or maybe it's a case as is in Cayman with immigration. One is on the dependency of the other's work permit, and these things it could be the health insurance, it could be, and those levels of, if I remember, dependency sort of creates in itself, opportunity for abuse, for other issues. And how do we contend with those in Cayman, where they could all be in one environment?
Yeah, and I think that is an issue here in particular, because there is the immigration, status and things like that. So people are actually being faced with, sometimes they feel they have to stay within the relationship to stay on island. Sometimes that is the case. They will. We can help people to go back to their own country if that's what they're looking for. But then when you've got children involved, it makes it more complicated. And it's not easy. And a lot of people think, oh, why doesn't she just leave? Actually, leaving is the hardest thing to do, and it's also the most dangerous time in a woman's life in that relationship. So it is so difficult for anyone to leave, and we completely understand that and appreciate that at the crisis centre. We take all of that into account. So anyone that does pick up that phone and dial that number, that's such a huge step for them to do, and we completely appreciate what it has taken them to get to that stage.
I can imagine that for even some, maybe because of religious preferences, maybe because of societal expectations, that, oh no, we won't disrupt the family by doing that. That doesn't happen here. So we'll deal with it to their own peril and their family. How do we get people to understand that their safety and security is of paramount importance?
It is really difficult. And as a parent myself, I completely understand that way of thinking, and you don't want to split up the family. You want your children to be safe, and you want to be safe as well, and you think that you're doing the best for them. I completely get that. However, the effect that domestic violence has on a child, and a lot of people think, oh, but they're in their room, they're sleeping, they don't see it, they don't hear it. They absolutely do. They absolutely do hear it. They know exactly what is going on. You know yourself when you walk into a room and you can feel tension. That is what that child is living with every single day of their lives. They don't know what they're going home to. The mother doesn't know what they're going home to. Sometimes the father doesn't know, and to live with that constant tension and that, that pent-up anger that then comes from that is just, it's damaging actually to children in the long run.
And perhaps we're thinking as the parents that, we're not going to separate because we're doing it for the interest of the child, but it's are we doing them more harm? Now, I do recognize that statistically, the women are the ones who are the victims. But your resources are, as you shared, man, woman, or child.
Absolutely,
available for everyone.
And a large piece of that is that with domestic violence, there is. A lot of people don't report. So with the levels of underreporting, those levels are even higher for men. More men are underreporting. Yeah. We do find now that we have Estella's Place, we will get men coming in, walking in, calling to get supports. but those levels are very underreported. That's true everywhere, and it's true of men and women. But we do find that when we have the services available and men know that they are welcome, that they do come forward.
Yeah,
I want to ask my second question following this one about abuse and if it's appropriate, the different levels of abuse, because many of us only think about abuse as that physical thing that the person's experiencing. Those who are so thankful through the education initiatives understand that it extends further than that. But before we do, children, they're in a home environment where maybe they're being abused, maybe they're something's not what it should be in that environment. I'm thinking of a scenario where that child may even feel less independent. So maybe the child has come here, with the family. Perhaps the child is, has been here forever and the family's been here forever, but it's a very small family, so not much connection to extended family. Well, that child must feel even more vulnerable, but what do I do? Yeah, let's say the child is thinking, school, I got healthcare, I got this, and this. How do I access this thing? Could we maybe first talk about a situation that we see what the mother, the spouse may be feeling and having to move, but that person is an adult. But here is an adolescent who now has all these things plus that age. Any particular considerations that may, as a public, we may not even be conscious of, that child is facing even more greatly than, say, the adult who's been the victim?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can imagine, if you put yourself in that situation and imagine that it's you and you're going home and you know that there is a very high chance that your mother will be beaten tonight, and what do you do about that? You can't actually do anything about it. Maybe you've tried to intervene in the past and you've then been caught up in that and you've been beaten as well. And if you have no one to go to and no kind of family support or anyone round about that you can, get solace from, then, where do you go with that? How does that affect your mind as a child? And then as you're growing up, what are your childhood memories? Your childhood memories are of fear, of, listening to screams, listening to, your mother being beaten, maybe your father being beaten. But then does that become the norm for you? Do you just think that, well, that's how relationships are? So is that something that you then take into your adult relationship? Anything goes wrong in your life, what is your first answer? It's to lash out. It's to use violence because that's all you've ever known. And the emotional turmoil that gives to a child is just unbelievable. And it's a constant thing that doesn't go away. And there are different levels of abuse. There's physical abuse, there's control, there's emotional abuse, there's financial abuse. But emotional abuse, those bruises don't heal. That lasts forever.
We received a call off air, and I always try my hardest to engage with Susan, only because I think she has such a wonderful voice, and as people hear another voice, they would do it. So those who are listening, if you don't want to ask a question on air for whatever reason, can do like what the other callers have done so far. Put your call through to Susan. She'll relate to me, and with the respect and consent of our guests, we'll try to ask the question. But if you want, and you can encourage Susan to ask the question on your behalf, help me to encourage her to be a part of our show. But she does it. She always, you see her, she's doing everything, but she's quiet and she's thinking, what do you want me to talk to? What else do you want me to do? So I'll relate a question that came in off air. This resource, men and women and children. So if men are in this situation, it applies to them. And the question has been asked, well, if a man is in a situation where he's being abused, what options does he have? Maybe does he talk to the authorities? Does he report it? Is that option A? I mean, is that an option?
Oh, of course it's an option. It's an option to everyone. If you have been assaulted in some way, then you have every right to have charges brought against your perpetrator. However, if what they want to do is talk it through and find out what all of their options are, because they do have lots of options, then they can come to the walk-in service at Estella's Place. Okay. So that's on Eastern Avenue in Crown Square. And they can. That's from 10 till 6, Monday to Friday. Friday. Anyone can drop in, or they can contact the main office line on 9490366 and arrange an appointment. That's not a problem at all, and we can discuss what their options are and the way in which they want to go forward.
Okay, so male or female, that resource at Stella's Place is there for you Monday to Friday, 10
Absolutely.
to 6. These options that we're asking from men, hopefully it'll perk up, not just men, but women. They're available to male and female, so report it to the authorities and so on. Let's say because of maybe the stigma, maybe because of this belief, I don't even want to call it culture, but that exists. You know, maybe the man goes to the police, and the police say, "What kind of man you is? You make your wife beat you." I'll just use it in a colloquialism. So they dismiss, right? What then?
My hope, we're actually working very closely with RCIPS at the moment, and it's to try and move away from that train of thought. We've actually, the reason we're late is because we've just been training with the police, bizarrely. So yes, that is something that we're working with, and we will continue to do throughout the rest of this year and coming years. And I think that it's getting better. I do think that there is more understanding there now than there was maybe previously, and that's something that we are hoping to improve on as well. But there are other options. It doesn't need to be, not everyone wants to press charges, and actually the majority of cases, men and women, they don't want to press charges because they don't want anything bad to happen. All they want is the abuse to stop, nothing else. That's all they want to happen, is just for it to stop. And unfortunately it's not always as straightforward as that. But yes, it is something that I know has happened in the past. We're hoping that our work with RCIPS will put a stop to that, and there will be more understanding.
And we've been working with the Family Resource Centre, with MASH, with RCIPS, and what I will say is a lot of this conversation has come down to also is that with domestic violence, it's not just an issue for the Crisis Centre, it's not just an issue for the women's sector to deal with. It's really a societal issue. It really is a cultural shift that needs to happen. And it's not just in Cayman, it's everywhere. But it really is, like, domestic violence is not just a woman's issue. It's not just her who experiences it. It really is all of society.
Right. Now, with respect to the resources that are available in the shelter, is it male and female that
not for the shelter?
So it's only women?
It's women only at the moment for the shelter, unfortunately, because it's such a small space as well. We unfortunately can't have men and women in there together. No. We are hoping, and the plan is that we will be building a new building later on in the next few years, and that will hopefully accommodate both male and female. Unfortunately, at the moment, we can offer men every service we offer women, apart from the shelter.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that the people in our society will not, delay seeking assistance, male or female. Now, with that, as we talk about abuse, would it be helpful for us to understand the different types of abuse that exist? Yes, we understand the physical and the sexual, but a person in an environment who is being abused could suffer other types of abuse as well that is as destructive to them and to their families.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep, we can. There's financial abuse if men and women. If someone's getting paid and they're taking part of your paycheck or controlling how much you can spend in a week or something like that, that's financial abuse. If we're talking about children, there's also neglect on children. You don't, kids not having the right supports, kids coming into school maybe not properly. Without proper hygiene, or having their homework not done, and not having the support that you want every child in our society to have from their families and from their support networks. Sexual abuse, it's also something that, while it occurs in domestic relationships, it is something that also occurs in marital relationships. That it could still be considered sexual abuse in some cases. And then there's also sexual abuse sexual abuse in the workplace, where that relationship may not be domestic, but it is still something that is occurring, where the victim is still experiencing the abuse.
That person, sort of in position of authority,
Absolutely, because what domestic abuse and sexual abuse really boil down to is the power and control relationship that someone is trying to get power over another person.
Okay. We have a short break, final break of our segment. I know it's just you guys impart such good information. And thank you so much for helping us to get through what can be a challenging subject, but thankfully one that has to be broached. And could we ask two things? One, whether the law is such that you have to be the person making the complaint, or if you withdraw it, does it still proceed? Sometimes I'm a bit conflicted. And then secondly, if you can maybe share some of the statistics so that the people in this country understand that this is a one-off, it may be a daily occurrence, as you wish, as you can. When we come back, if you want to be part of our discussion, please rejoin us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Is this thing working? Give me some sound over here.
Every Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. Radio Cayman Super Jam Show, the #1 drive time entertainment show for your radio, featuring Will Sinatra.
Now, sound is everything.
Enjoy a mix of pop, hip-hop, reggae, and calypso, and an entertainment trivia section. The Super Jam Show is fueled by the proud sponsorship of the Cayman Islands Football Association. SIFA, building a better future for Cayman football.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us as we have a good chance to hopefully bring to the public's attention the great things that continue to unfold in society. And even though they are, I don't necessarily want to say society's ills, but they exist and we should not ignore them and downplay it by any means. But there are ways that we can help. So because things that are happening sometimes need to be championed. And thank you too for being part of helping us at the Crisis Center. I was asking though, legislation with respect to how the law is. Someone makes a complaint, again, in domestic abuse situations, and they withdraw the complaint for that reason. Is that the end of it?
It depends on the situation, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, yes, it will be the end of it, but sometimes actually the police can prosecute themselves. They don't need the victim, if you like, or the complainer to be the person that actually presses those charges. It depends entirely on each individual situation and the severity as well of the circumstances.
So it depends.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and that's quite common. Sometimes people will say, "Yes, I want to press charges," and then they'll change their mind maybe the following day or a couple of days later, and that can be for a variety of reasons. Maybe they've just suddenly realised, that means he's not going to be allowed to come back. They maybe didn't appreciate that to start with. Maybe someone's got to them, and kind of,
intimidation.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be for lots and lots of different reasons. The confusion that goes through someone's mind when they're in that situation is just, you can't even begin to imagine. So yes, people do retract, and a lot of the time it's through fear that they make that retraction. It's exactly the same with a child who discloses, sexual assault or something like that as well. They tend to retract. They go through a phase, if you like. However, depending on the situation, the police may be so involved, and if it's gone to the Procurator Fiscal, then it's actually up to him. He can decide, no, we're going ahead with these charges, but it depends on every situation and on the severity of it as well.
Yeah, I won't belabor it. I have my own views on something, but that's just me back when I would look at public policy. That's a different story. And it's challenging. I only hope that our community, like, litter in our streets, like the way we treat our, our environment, that we consider our impact and do best. But statistically, I think some people need to understand that things are happening. If you, don't appreciate the occurrence of certain things, you may think, well, it's not significant. But it's always significant to the person or people or thing that is happening to.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I want to highlight is really the number of people coming forward now versus maybe a couple of years ago or something like that, because we have seen an increase in the need for our shelter services, so much so that in December we have our shelter services a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom. We have 26 beds in total, including 2 cribs. In December, we had 35 people, not necessarily at the same time, but we had 35 people access our shelter services in December. That's the highest number of people. It's the highest we've ever been at capacity. And in November, it was 34. So this is the highest year. And it always rises with different holidays or with sporting events or something like that, the number of people who access services, or because those are when the incidents rise, when there's alcohol involved, when there's other things happening, when there's other stressors in people's lives, is when it is more prominent. But that's also true of the number of calls. In 2018, the Crisis Center received more than 300 calls in the year, and we're a small island, so that's quite a large number of people that are coming forward just in the island and seeking help. So that's definitely something that I want to highlight. But for example, in 2016, the Crisis Center in total had 32 women come forward. That does not include their children. So the numbers are always higher. A lot of women come with 1 or 2 kids, potentially more. And we do welcome women to come. They are, if they're accessing shelter services, you can come with your kids. You can bring your kids to the shelter as well. So in 2016, it was 32 women plus their children. In 2017, that number went down a little bit to 27. But in 2018, it was 48 women plus their children. So that number has increased. That number was almost double from 2017 for the number of people who wanted to access services in 2018. And that is coming forward more. And you can see that in all societies because of Me Too campaigns and other things that are happening. But we do want women to come forward because it's not that we think that the numbers were lower in previous years, just that more people are reporting, more people are feeling more comfortable to come forward because it's being known that this is, because they're being made aware that what they are experiencing is wrong. Yeah.
And as you shared, it's worldwide. We may be following the young Saudi, I call her teen, but she's a young adult, right?
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And you look at it, that's cultural. Well, really, it's something that's affecting another living person. It may not be down the street, but it really, as you turn on your news or if you're in social media, you'll see it. But what about the person who is down the street? And what is our approach as a society to the neglect, to the abuse that is unfolding? And some of us probably know, that is happening within a working environment. But there was a question that I'll reformulate it if I can, off air. There was asked, if you suspect co-worker, family member, neighbor, whatever it is, that there's something just not right, what do you do? You're not one of those people who are obligated to report as we have the legislation, but you're just, someone. What do you do? Do you do anything?
I think if you think that there's something wrong, then I would speak to. I suppose it depends on who the person is and how well you know them, and what it is that you think you're asking them as well. And it can be really difficult, and people might not want to disclose things through embarrassment or anything like that. They can always call us, and talk it through, and they don't need to give names. It can be completely anonymous, but they can call us and even just say, what do you think? Or there are other services out there as well that are experienced, the Family Resource Centre, the counselling services. They can call anyone and just put a hypothetical, that I think this is happening, this is what I've seen, this is what I've heard, what do you think, kind of thing. I think we would all be more than happy to take that call and to talk anyone through it, especially if they're worrying about it. And I'm a great believer in what I call my spidey sense, so I trust that absolutely. So if something feels wrong, it probably is.
Well, as you share that, and I'm thinking that some of us we don't want to be busybody and nosy neighbor, what have you. But in the presentation I was referring to earlier, the person, I think I recalled it was another jurisdiction, but it really doesn't matter, had this inkling that something wasn't, but even though being a professional, didn't act on it, didn't want to get involved because it wasn't enough but just a spider sense, as you call it. Yeah. And unfortunately, it materialized that it was an unfortunate outcome as a result. And maybe we don't want to be that person now who say, I should have. So your crisis center is available to that co-worker, to that neighbor who thinks, absolutely, this doesn't look right. This child has too many bumps and bruises. This lady is, or this man is, whatever the thing is, and then that's helpful. We have to be our neighbour.
No, absolutely. And I think we all have an obligation as well. Back in Scotland, we have a publication. It's a safeguarding publication that's called "It's Everyone's Job to Make Sure I'm All Right," and it's aimed at children. But for me, I just think that actually should apply to absolutely everyone. And it's not about things going on behind closed doors, and it's none of my business. Actually, it is your business. It's everyone's business to make sure that children are safe.
A friend had, as part of an initiative, made us somewhat cognizant of whether it's in the UK, some of the resources. It's a larger population, but some of the resources that are available on a grander scale. Yes, more people, more resources. And I was thinking, couldn't we have some of that here?
Absolutely.
And hopefully, through discussions like this, we start to appreciate that these are things. The Thai Lounge, the Estella's Place to walk in, those are steps in the right direction that help us to be able to get the assistance we need and not be the busybody, but be that concerned person, right? Merida, I tell you. I'm sorry, I had to get it in today. Oh man, if we don't laugh sometimes, who knows where we'll be. Now, Ms. Lambert, from that perspective, and look how quickly the time, Susan reminded me, you're almost there. You got 4 minutes, she says.
Oh no.
Well, and to you, what would you share with us now? Because I've got so many questions, but you tell us.
I think the biggest thing that we want everyone to know that we are here. The Crisis Center is here. The Crisis Center is on island, available to all 3 islands. We have lots of services. Our services are not just limited to shelter services. They are not just limited to men, and they're not just limited to adults. We have our shelter services that are for women and their children, which is a 24-hour residential service. We have our crisis hotline, and the number for that, again, is...
943 CICC?
Yep, 943 CICC 2422. We just launched our Kids Helpline, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 3 to 6, which is 649-KIDS, which is 5437. We do also have our Thai Lounge. A quick plug, Thai Lounge is available for teens 14 to 21. It runs from Tuesday to Friday from 3 to 8, and registration is open on Mondays from 3 to 5 for anyone who might be interested, wants more information, or would like to register to be a part of Thai Lounge. They do lots of fun things. They cook. It's a great place for teens to build networks and get to know each other. They learn life skills, but all through a very fun therapeutic curriculum. It's something that our teens really enjoy, and we find that most of our teens are actually referred through other teens once they start the program, so that's amazing. We do have our aftercare program for people who've left the shelter, but the last one that I'd want to talk about is outreach. The Crisis Center does provide free presentations for anyone, your business, your school, and we can talk about anything from the Crisis Center services to what is domestic violence, what impact does domestic violence have on children, how does domestic violence play out in the workplace. Really, whatever your organization is looking for, we do have free presentations that we can come and do. And through that, we also, again, we get lots of volunteers. We are always looking for volunteers, and we are also always looking for donations, monetary or in kind. We do have a 5-year plan, as Carol Ann was mentioning, to build a new shelter. So we're always looking for new things. It's not a need that we want in the community, but because the need is there, we're doing our best to fill that need.
Now, with respect to your volunteers, I sort of want to highlight that. First, have a call online. Let's don our headsets, put on our seatbelts, and as we go to our phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, and to you and your panel. I understand I only have seconds to speak with you. I'm wondering what kind of statistics are kept locally, not statistics referring to the United States or the Caribbean. But I just wondered if we're keeping statistics such as how many married women are applying, how many single women, married women with children, single women with children, married women on work permit, single women on work permit. What kind of statistics is the crisis center keeping?
Okay. Statistics, are we not so much to share, but we're keeping statistics on sort of access to resources and the like? The call is asking.
Sorry, I couldn't
okay.
quite hear the call.
The call was asking if we're keeping locally, not international, not regional.
Mm-hmm.
Are we keeping statistics on the people and
Yes, the Crisis Center has, again, anonymous. It's an anonymized database that we are kind of putting together of the people accessing our services, how many people we have access our services every year, how many children, how many male or female children, how many adults, how many women who comes through our door to sell us plays, how many crisis calls we get, and who the crisis calls are from as well. We do have some data because it is, for us, it's to see who's coming forward in our society, where our needs are, and it's really important for us to have some of that data to be able to also show the need for our services and why it's there.
And you, as the call was asking, a work permit, because we know that those immigration issues can present.
Yes.
So you have all that as well to help you to inform your programming.
We do have it, we just didn't bring it with us. And actually, it's a shame you didn't hear that question because you're the person that deals with it, which is why I was looking at you. We didn't actually bring that information with us, but we do have it, and we can make it available.
We certainly want to invite you again to maybe you focus on all the programming, maybe on one, whatever you need. You shared it at the outset, Ms. Caroline, that you're looking at making this a safe, violent-free society.
Yes.
And it's us, all of us that live here.
Absolutely.
Irrespective of our economic status, our ethnicity, our immigration status. We live and work here. We need it to be a safe, wonderful place. And it can be. Yeah. And it should be. And it will be.
Yes.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you for having us.
Look forward to having you come back on.
Absolutely.
And,
Thank you.
Please bring your bow and arrow next time.
I'm not sure I would be allowed out with one, but
hey, it will be. It'll be a pink one with a fluorescent black. All right, to our listeners, please, if you can, get in touch with the Crisis Center, especially if you need the services. But if you think you can be of value and offer a volunteer, the admin line 9490366. Of course, the Crisis Center line is 943-2422, 943-CICC. Let's pause and take a break. When we come back, more talk today.
Radio K-Man. Radio K-Man's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
The Premier and Minister for Financial Services head off island today as they embark on a whirlwind tour of international centres to tout Cayman's financial services. The Honourable Alden McLaughlin left Cayman for meetings in London, Brussels, Paris, Berlin and New York. He is joined by the Honourable Tara Rivers, the Attorney General and other ministry officials. The Cayman team hopes to showcase its continued efforts to stay off the blacklist of the European Union. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. Malta has reached a deal with 8 EU countries to divide up and take in 49 migrants stranded at sea for weeks. Prime Minister Joseph Muscat named them as Germany, France, Portugal, Ireland, Romania, Luxembourg, the Netherlands and Italy. The deal means the 49 migrants who have been stranded on charity-run boats amid a row over who would take them can now disembark in Malta. The deal also decides the future of another 249 rescued migrants already in the island nation. Hundreds of thousands of fish have been found floating in the Darling River in Australia and washed up on its banks. Local officials say falling temperatures killed an algae bloom, which then decomposed, causing oxygen depletion in the water. But critics say the state and federal governments have been mismanaging the environment. And Kevin Hart has said he definitely won't come back on board as host of the Oscars this year. The American comedian and actor pulled out of hosting the awards ceremony in December amid controversy over homophobic tweets he posted almost a decade ago. There was speculation that he might return, but on Wednesday he told ABC's Good Morning America, "I'm not hosting the Oscars this year." The Academy Awards organizers now have less than 7 weeks to find a host. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
If you are seeking a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate degree, the Ministry of Education is now accepting applications for the 2019 Overseas Scholarships. Give yourself the education you deserve and apply today. All scholarship applications must be submitted by January 31st, 2019. For more information on scholarships and the application process, kindly visit education.gov.ky.
The only bad workout is the one that never happened. Make 2019 the year you commit to fitness. Let King Sports Center put you on the right track with their Get Fit 2019 sale from December 15th to January 15th. 2-for-1 Powerhouse Gym memberships for $600 or a single membership for $325. And call them to find out how you can take an additional $100 off this sale price. 946-5464 or visit kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs. Remember, fit is not a destination. It is a way of life.
This Health Flash is brought to you by Cleveland Clinic, Florida. Over 65 million people around the world have moderate or severe COPD, a family of diseases that includes emphysema and chronic bronchitis. Cleveland Clinic, Florida offers a wide range of management and treatment options for COPD, including programs focused on education, medication, smoking cessation, and pulmonary rehabilitation. A team of experts is ready to review your symptoms and test results to develop a comprehensive treatment plan. For more information, visit clevelandclinicflorida.org.
RC Fusion, featuring Billboard pop hit songs and more from the 70s to the 90s.
RC Fusion.
Weekdays from 10 a.m. till 12. RC Fusion.
Brought to you by Country and Western. No mess, no fuss, just the best in Caymanian cuisine at a price you can afford.
Country and Western now offering delivery. Call 945-4079.
RC Fusion. RC Fusion.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us. It is open line for the remainder of today's program, and we invite you to be a part of a discussion. Talk about whatever you want. A couple of things I would like to bring to your attention that some of you brought to me to ask, what can you broach it with the public? Well, certainly will. But it is a program for you. And like democracy, it's for the people, by the people, of the people, all those sort of things. Well, if we're not involved and informed and engaged, and actively so, well, what's the point? But before I do, again, a special thanks to all of our guests who come in here and share with us. And the conversation just then with our friends over the Crisis Center. It's important, and I know it's a difficult, touchy subject. Sometimes we ourselves are abused or the abusers. We may have been. We may not have intended. We may not even sometimes be conscious of this whole issue. As I try to adjust my chair here to make sure Miss Susan has the camera set, boy, I want to pray that what I feel having a camera geared on me, would that qualify as abuse? I don't like it. Give me a book in the day and a radio. But I'm thankful to Susan's counsel and guidance. Maybe one day I'll actually be comfortable sitting there. I want to ask you to be mindful that you're listening to the radio. You're just happening to be listening as you watch through some video screen. Radio is, you're out fishing, you can listen to the radio. You won't be watching TV, you'll be listening to the radio. Now you just have to listen as you watch. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. You want to WhatsApp, 925-3261. A lot of numbers, but they all get you to the same place. That is, to actively engage and to participate. You were able to join me start this morning, and he had MLA Kenneth Bryan on and sharing well. As Mr. Bryan, as a representative for Georgetown Central, has a meeting next Tuesday evening in the Georgetown Town Hall. As he shared, the Honourable Tourism Minister will be there. I say this to believe, and I believe it. Yes, the port, if constructed, if it happens in the North Sound, if it happens in North Side, if it happens in Red Bay, if it happens in the Georgetown Harbour, it's an issue that's going to affect all the country, not just those areas. Not just because of the economic nor the environmental impact, but because it's going to be something that concerns us all. So certainly the voters and the residents within the Georgetown Central come out, but you want to hear from the tourism minister, who is the elected cabinet member whose portfolio is responsible for that. Well, be a part of that as well and engage with your representatives. 8949-8037, why don't you engage with us here and share your views. Now, over the Christmas, a couple of you shared that, yes, the weather wasn't the best to go out and the sea and enjoy, but they found two things. One, it was a little choppy. Some would say that in years past, there have probably been advisories, almost to the point actively and very publicly discouraging, certainly not promoting people to go in the sea and surf and play and so on. Yet it seemed to have been celebrated in some quarters. And one individual said for all the years that he's lived in Cayman, he never saw it so openly and publicly celebrated as seemingly over this last Christmas, especially in the South Sound area where it's notorious. I think might have been the word he used. I'm pretty sure. 99.99% sure that was the word he used. For its heavy currents during that time. And when the weather gets that way, people may stand by the shore, but they certainly don't dip a toe in the sand and venture out, because it can be quite challenging. Yet people out there, actively engaged in the surfing. Not that they won't or don't do it other places, but wasn't a custom here. Is that a change that we need to consider? And then secondly, he said that as they were going out and wanting to see how the waves were affecting the beach with family and friends visiting, get a chance to see it, because it's not, usually that rough year round. It's only, when we get a little nor'wester, a little bad weather, a little cold front and the like. And he said, yes, Cayman is home, has been for a few decades, so he's seen the changes. But the limited access, even in the areas where there's a posted, beach access sign. Now, he gave us a couple of examples along West Bay Road. There's a sign. After they struggled to find somewhere to park, they would walk. And he said, within 50 feet, 60 feet, the access path almost disappears. You're now walking through what would almost be certainly heavily impeded, whether because of the landscape and the type of shrubbery that is used, from the particular plants to the other obstructions in the path, to the path actually just stopping. And he thought, why is this being allowed? And so many of the access points were being hampered. And he thought, why is it such a hindrance to get to the beach? And then he started to question, well, what if the person is on the beach and needs to get to the main road? How would they get there? Maybe they came ashore by boat. Maybe they were walking and something happened. For whatever reason, now they need to get to the main road to perhaps beckon to some help or otherwise. Not to mention, least of which, perhaps they emergency services may need to get access to it. Now, to his point, the question and discussion has always been, well, access to the beach for recreation, but what about the safety reasons? And this notion that we seem to have talk about beach access and the high water mark and what was the traditional custom expected practice to what it is now. And he thought, from his perspective, you went in the sea, and from where the beach was up to a great distance, that was the beach. That's where you could play and enjoy yourselves. Now it seems that it's maybe just a matter of a couple of inches, the distance between the high and the low water marks. Is that really what it is? And if it isn't, why has it been so difficult, or seemingly an unwillingness on the part of the elected members, the appointed members, the government, the civil service, the wider community to address this issue? He says it doesn't take much to realize how this issue becomes so inflamed if it continues to be unaddressed. Now, it may not be of importance to you, but if it is, share with us your thoughts. 949-8037 or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. Likewise, if you want to WhatsApp us, 925-3261 and share your thoughts with us. Now, he said that beach access may or may not have been an issue on the minds of people during the Christmas, but he thought as the weather was in the port and it affected not just the cargo vessels but the cruise ships and the like, what else are we looking at? And because of the weather, he always found, perhaps like some of us, it's a good time to go down and see the waves, because it's not something you see all year round. And yet, that was a challenge that he had. Let's pause quickly and take a very short break. It is a final break. And when we come back, let's see if we have any calls online. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
At Flow, we know that 4 are better than 1. Introducing Flow Quad Play. Packed with the fastest, most reliable broadband, the power and control of Flow Evo TV, Cayman's best mobile experience, and tons of home phone minutes, all in one convenient package from only $199 a month. With 4 plans to choose from, you're sure to find one that fits your needs. It's value, ease, and convenience all on one bill with Cayman's #1 network. Find out why 4 are better than 1 with Flow Quad Play at discoverflow.ky. Terms and conditions apply.
Cayman's cruise tourism is not at risk.
Not at risk. Not at risk if we do not build the piers.
This is according to the Vice President of Carnival Cruise Lines.
The vast majority of cruise ships will continue to be smaller ships that will tender for the foreseeable future.
Of the 22 ships on order by Carnival Cruise Lines, only three
are mega-class ships
destined for the Caribbean.
It is also a fact that the 4th largest mega ship in the world, the MSC Margavalia,
will call on Cayman from October 2019 by tender.
Cayman's thriving cruise sector has grown steadily by 14%.
We will not lose any current revenue without the piers.
But we may jeopardize our stay-over tourism,
which generates 76% of our tourism revenue.
Is a cruise pier really needed?
There are currently too many unanswered questions.
Our government must get this right for us now and future generations.
Make an informed decision. It's your constitutional right.
It is your constitutional right. Sign the petition, support the referendum, and let's build our future together.
From happy beginnings to happy ever after,
BritK protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
95% of claims settled in 5 days.
Low-cost life insurance.
And investments.
Security in retirement.
With a custodian pension plan.
For happy beginnings and a happy ever after,
visit BritK.ky or call 949-8699.
BritK, where people come first.
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Brought to you by the CFA Society Cayman Islands and sponsored by One Trade X. Tune into Money Sense exclusively on Radio Cayman this Thursday at 7:30 a.m. as our team gives you their views on what to expect in 2019. Boom, bust, growth, or recession? Tune in at Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to find out. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Money Sense Radio. Money Sense, the only personal finance radio show in the Cayman Islands. Brought to you with the support of One Trade X.
Talk today.
but I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. It is Open Line here on Talk Today. Got a couple of calls. Let's take the first. Good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon again, Sterling.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon again.
Wonderful. Those ladies on with that very important issue there.
Yes, sir.
So
Thank
very
you.
important services that they give. It's good for you to have had them on. It must be a horrible thing for a child watching their mother being beat up. Yes. Anyhow, that they're doing something about it, and there are people who are willing to help and assist those in that situation. Early on, I know I couldn't get to say all I wanted to say, but because of the time limits and so
Yes, sir.
forth.
Thank you for understanding.
When I made that quote from William Shakespeare, it was the preamble in a book, if you want to call it that, written by that famous marine biology professor, Archie Carr. I think he's from Trinidad. I know he would be fast to be an oil imagine, but did meet him many times when I was at the Turtle Farm. He used to come there, and he did a lot of research with it. They were very interested, and he learned a lot, and he often talked that to me. And he gave me a copy of that book, somewhere, where he quoted that. He meant, and he said, so excellent a fish. He used the old English spelling, F-I-S-H-E, because he had quoted Shakespeare and so forth with from the Tempest, and with that famous line, where he has suffered a sea change into something rich and strange was the turtle. And that impressed me so much, because so much work went into that. Young people don't understand all the was doomed, the tremendous sacrifice and work that went into that to build that business. It became a good, viable commercial entity. And I remember we had over 107,000 turtles, I think, in 1978. But I was on the engineering staff with my great friend Norman Clark, Lincoln Hyde. Norman was chief engineer, and in the final run, Lincoln was with us too, engineering, and we had to do a lot of sacrifice. But the thing is this: it had become such a important thing. A lot of research work was done. A lot of records were kept, thousands of pages, and a lot of research done on it and the hatching out of the turtles. We had two huge breeding ponds where the parking lot is now. Final one built in 77 there to the south one of it. And it was such a joy to look forward to that becoming. And we had a huge jewelry factory up there. We were shipping out the turtle meat. We were shipping off the turtle oil, come back as soaps and aftershave lotion and shaving cream and different things. And then the beautiful suits were made into, different products. But, and it was viable. It employed over 130-something Caymanians and all that. And I was very disappointed when we signed on to the CITES Convention. Well, we know why we did that. We won't go into all that now. It appeared to be sanctioned. And it killed the business. Of course, we have a beautiful thing now with the center, more or less a show thing. And that's still very well good in its place. I've always been and always will be against releasing the turtles. We don't farm animals at such great expense and time and then turn around and turn them loose. Farm animals. I don't see it. I'm against it. I won't go into that again. But the park in town too, where the Scotia Bank is and where the courthouse is now, that was a part of the park, a big park. Great mango trees were there. I remember long mangoes and round mangoes. And I remember my old friend Edward Solomon. I was running the Shell station there for Jim Bodden when they were talking about the park there a while ago. And Edward used to come over lunchtime, buy patties and all that he would eat. And then he would go into the park and pick some mangoes, and I couldn't leave the place. And he'd bring them back for me and cheer them and share jokes. And looking back on those great old days, like we were saying, but we have quadrupled our population, and generational Caymanians or indigenous people that other countries call are a great minority. So there's a major difference. To keep what we call our culture going, which I'm proud of Mr. Locks and all the rest, it's very difficult because even our younger people now, they don't really see the value of it as it should be to us, the same as us. Is what I was trying to explain here. If that's kind of hard to understand, but we can live with that memory, keep it going, and try to keep impressing on us to keep that part of our culture going, all those great things, the memories of those great people who contributed so much to this country. Keep it going and all that, and keep those things in our minds that we can keep reminding our people. Yes, what we do here too is a building that's 40 years old. We call it old. In other countries, right down in Miami, the government is using buildings 100 years old, and the embassies are using those 100-year-old buildings. I know this for a fact. In Jamaica, for instance, there are buildings 200 years old that they're using, the government is using, and older than that too in the old capital, Spanish Town. I just thought I'd say these things because we can't keep saying that we didn't build a building good enough 40 years ago. Many old houses we know are lasting. They're here, Wattle and Daub. We're 100 years old. But we can't say that buildings that we just built 40 years ago are now old and we have to knock them down. And this is one of the things that sticks in my craw. I just thought I'd bring that up. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you too. And if you have a second, I'll ask you in relation to that. Two things. One, with respect to buildings, let's look at development. We've seen that along Semi Beach in particular, we've knocked down condos that have been there 25, 30 years, whatever, and now in their place, we're not only building newer buildings, but we're going 3 or 4 times the height of what was on the property before. So how do we look at that in terms of moving forward and respecting our past? We're knocking down the 3-story building and putting up 15-story buildings. Okay.
This was inevitable. These people bought the land, we sold it to them for little and nothing. We have to put it in the context of nowadays prices. And they're going to utilize it the best way they can. And what Mr. McKeever said, you may laugh at it and say, oh, Lord, he's getting old and senile or whatever. But it's not unrealistic at all. It might happen because these people have paid a lot of money. They have a lot of money, and they know the land is worth a fortune. And we don't have the space to go up horizontal, so they got to go up. And this is what is happening. So along the West Bay area, only a very few will remain that maybe have old owners. There are some that are 40 years old and more too, and that will remain, I guess. But then the others are going to go, and they're going to go up and up and up. I remember the old Target Manor where I work. Look at what's in its place now. I often miss seeing that old building. I remember the wonderful owners who were there. Most have passed away. But this is reality. This is what I said. We have to be realistic. This is what's going to happen. Do I like it? No, I don't. I have to be honest. I'd rather see how it was 40, 50 years ago. But that's unrealistic. It's not going to happen. It's hard to accept it, but we have to accept it and move on, make the best that we can, the older ones of us, because we'll soon be gone, and try to keep the culture going as Mr. Loxley is doing, and others, Dr. Steve and Dr. Frank, and all the others who are talking about it, to keep it going, that people, it won't be completely obliterated. We are like the Red Indians, in the United States. There's very little difference. We may soon end up on reservations. Who knows? The National Trust has a lot of land. We may end up as that. Indigenous Caymanians. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for sharing. And a question that I would ask, from what I call is shared, the knowledge that we have, the information that is being distilled and disseminated to our public about Cayman, its history, about Caymanians and this culture and the like. How accurate is it? How, is it being, perceived? How is it being presented? And when we look at it, is that now being positioned in such a way that perhaps it may favor certain things, may try to dissuade other things? Let's pop to the phones. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Yes, Sterling. I just wanted to correct something that I heard Mickey say just now. That
Yes.
when you hear me talking about what I talked about this morning, I'm trying to let people know, not just the politicians, but people in general, know that growth is not a bad thing. And anybody who's studied architecture or anything like that in that area will know that one of the worst things that can happen is when you have unsustainable growth, meaning that you're building, you don't have the infrastructure. You're building these buildings on 7 Mile Beach. There's no central soul on 7 Mile Beach. Everything is going in the septic tank. And I've been preaching this for some time. And when those septic tanks start to burst, like the one up in Georgetown that comes up on the waterfront up there, when these things start to happen, then they come back and say, oh, what happened? But you see, I keep repeating this. When money is the objective of everything, you're going to find yourself in trouble down the road. That is the problem. And I just want anybody who's listening to think about it. Because we can get and the day that we become like Miami, and we start having those multi-story buildings every place in the world, and nobody wants to go to Miami, downtown Miami, to spend a vacation, or Miami Beach. It's not a vacation spot no more. Cayman was known as the island that time forgot, and they called us that because we were gradually just being discovered, and we kept the little hotels were, and people would have paid anything to get in here. Now, every time they can hire can come here, and they're spending no money. They come in looking jobs, and we call them tourists and stuff. Make them go ahead. Make them go ahead. That's all I can say. If nobody wants to listen, and people who have no experience, who has no background in anything, are the ones that are making the decisions. You see, because they're in charge. Make them go ahead. It's going to come back to haunt them. That's all I can say.
Was it, as you shared, the old people used to say, you spit in the sky, you fall on your face? Hey, thanks for sharing with us, man. And, where are we? It's still early days. The year is just off to a good start. Are we going to shape it? And trying to control the narrative? Is it an honest, accurate reflection? Or is it to be painted in such a way that we don't really care the outcome as long as we look good? Hey, 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Those are the numbers to call us here on Talk Today, or when you join me start in the mornings for the record. Share with us as you wish. Invite you to have a very productive and enjoyable, safe rest of the afternoon. Hopefully, come back tomorrow for more Talk Today right after the midday news and midday meditation. Until then, be blessed.
shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.